and you're watching
StuyInterviews.
Hi everyone, I'm Miss Ahmed. I'm a rising senior at Stuyvesant High School. I am the president and founder of StuyInterviews, and today we're presenting you with a Survive Stuy 101 on college and high school.
My name is Melissa Lea. I graduated from Stuyvesant High School in 1982. I then graduated from Cornell University in 1986. And I worked for around 4.5 years and then went to law school because while at Cornell, I had credits towards an MBA. I was a finance and marketing major. Didn't need an MBA, but I was interested in law. So then I went to law school and I graduated from BC Law in 1993. I started in advertising and worked at agencies for many years. And I worked at agencies, then I quit, went back to law school. I did entertainment, sport, and sports law and litigation. And then I now live in Boston. I moved up to Boston. There's no entertainment or sports law in Boston. So I went back to advertising and I was the senior vice president of marketing for several agencies. And I also was the CEO of a media agency. And currently I am now I have my own firm and Muster Consulting, and I run a marketing consultancy group.
That is so cool and very, very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm just going to ask a few questions about your high school experience and then your college experience. So I think it makes sense if we start with high school. So starting off, what is something you wish you knew before attending Stuyvesant High School, if there's anything at all?
I would say understand when you're walking in, the people you are going to school with will be your friends for the rest of your life. That there is something so special about Stuyvesant that, and I married somebody who was a class ahead of me at Stuyvesant. We didn't date in high school, but we met 11 years later, and we actually just hosted one of our mutual friends up in Boston this week. So I know there's so much pressure. We all love science and math. I wanted to be an astronaut, but just push that aside. The academics are there. Look around you and know you are going to make some of the most fantastic friends of your life. Now, if you want me to talk about the academics, I will, but to me, that is the most important thing.
That is so valuable, especially for us students who are still in the school and still have the time to make connections. And just kind of to get a better sense of who you were, how would you describe yourself as a high school student in like general?
Well, I was always very diligent, always very studious, but I also had a very artistic side. I was on the stage squad. I acted in sing. I was in what was called back then the sextet. It was a 6 women singing group. So most of my friends were, believe it or not, were more theater geeks than anything. I was co-editor of our year's yearbook. I designed the yearbook, the cover, everything. It was very different. I took it upon myself to decide, I didn't like the publisher we were using. So during the summer before my senior year, I met with other publishers and I signed a contract. And when I got back to school in September, it's like, I wasn't even 18. And they were like, who the heck are you to like do this? We ended up sticking with that publisher. So I would say I made the most of it. And I had a good small group of friends. I was friends with people in the classes before me, and then still see people from my year as well.
That's so wonderful. Kind of going off on that, do you have any regrets or anything you would do differently during high school, like at your point in life, looking back now?
Oh gosh. When you go to high school, life is changing. You're changing. I don't mean to get into your body. Everything's changing, and girls, we can be really dramatic and things are so serious and oh my God, I like him or he doesn't like me. It's like just trying, just chill. Take it so seriously, but that's, the pot calling the kettle black because I take everything seriously. So
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And that really applies to so many of us. So that's very helpful. And so now kind of going on to the college aspect, start to kind of transition. What do you think made you stand out in your application that got you into Cornell?
I honestly don't remember. And what I also want to say is that because of the school that we go to, I went to, that you are in, our peers, our classmates are some of the most extraordinary people in the world. And it is very hard to compete with that. Back when I was at Stuyvesant, our college advisors I'll point blank say it, were awful. And they point blank said to me, "You're not going to get into that school. Good luck even getting into Binghamton." And so I, I walked away like thinking, I'm not worthy. And I ended up getting into Tufts early decision for various reasons. My parents wouldn't let me go. um, and to be frank, the only reason I could go to Cornell was because I was a New York State resident and the program I was interested in, the marketing and the business management, was in the ag school. So we could afford it because I couldn't get loans and I didn't come from a wealthy family. So there was a lot more pressure on me. And so it wasn't without trials and tribulations. And so it was really hard. So one, have have some self-confidence. Don't believe everything that the administration or the people who know better tell you. You will be very surprised at what you can achieve and where you can get and things you can do, and never give up. I was devastated when I couldn't go to Tufts. I wanted to be in Boston. But honestly, Cornell was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And that Cornell and Stuyvesant are two of the most amazing experiences of my life. So don't listen to other people. Listen to yourself and do whatever you need to do. Um, so, so from that perspective, the college application experience was pretty horrendous. And Stuyvesant did not help. I hope that it's different now. But what is not different is that you are competing with some of the most amazing people in the world, besides the grades, besides the test scores. Um, and yes, I had a lot of extracurriculars. I also worked after school. So my senior year, I was not in a show. I did not participate in sing because I needed to earn money. And so I worked, it was now Deloitte. Back then it was Touche Ross, but I worked after school and every day and I was a receptionist. But what happened with that was that turned into a full-time summer job. And then I got to go back to Deloitte every summer throughout my college career. So I had a job, which isn't the be all and the end all, because I also want to say you need to follow your passions. And it's not just about making money. And I know that was a long answer to a short question.
Very helpful answer at that, though. Thank you so much for that. And that really applies to a lot of our viewers because a lot of us are applying to college very soon, August 1st, actually. So that really, really hits home. So again, connecting Stui and Cornell, you kind of mentioned how they're very great experiences. If you could maybe compare and contrast some things about the rigor, maybe the actual school environment, things like that.
Cornell is hard. I went to, I was in an accelerated, back then we called it junior high school. So I was in an accelerated junior high. So I was in what was then known as an SP program. So we were used to rigor. So when we and some of my other classmates from my junior high went to Stuyvesant, it wasn't that much harder. What was harder was getting used to the commute. I came from Queens, so I had over an hour commute. I also, being on the stage squad, I was in there. I had to open up the crew room at 8 in the morning. I was on the subway at 6:30 in the morning. I don't know how I did it. So, and I don't know when I did my homework. So, but I did. I did my homework. When I got to Cornell, it is hard. And it was this is going to sound weird. It was the nascency of the personal computer. We didn't go to college. You know, one of the things when you apply to college now and when you get in, these are the things that you need. And one is a computer, a laptop. You have to have it. When I went to college, nobody had laptops. There weren't such things. So you used, that was the introduction of the Macintosh. So Cornell, the ag school had both a room that had Macintosh, and then there were also PCs. Thing is, the rooms with the Macs closed early, and the engineering quad, the PCs were open late. So a lot of times I would start my papers or my homework on a Mac, and then I'd have to print it out and then retype it because I was up till 2 and 3 in the morning typing. It's so it's really hard. The volume of work is hard, a lot, but it was also a lot because we didn't have a laptop. We didn't have the tools that you have today. But I will also tell you that Cornell is hard, much harder than Stuyvesant. And I remember saying to my friends, it's like, what do they think? We're a computer printer just spitting out work. Um, so, and it's not like freshman year or sophomore year, you need to cook for yourself because you're on a meal plan. But it's balancing, it's making new friends, it's finding your place. So it was very different from Stuyvesant in that, you know, we all went home at night at Stuyvesant. We didn't have to worry about, you know, cooking or anything. But it's a wonderful place, but it was hard, much harder than Stuyvesant, which
That's
sounds strange.
such a fresh perspective and really good to hear. So I think that's very, very helpful. And lastly, a question that I had is what's one piece of advice you'd give to the people watching this? Just Stuyvesant students in general, something about maybe high school and college and career.
Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself and take advantage of everything. Take try out everything. Join clubs. Not just for the sake of racking up the extracurriculars, but do things that you love. Meet people who are like-minded. You will, that is what it is about. It's about making connections. It's not about networking, that will come, but make friends. My first job out of school at the first agency I worked from, it was because of my freshman year boyfriend in college. He had the job, he was leaving it. I had had another job out of Stuyvesant. I didn't go straight into advertising, and I was miserable, and I quit. I actually quit my first job. It was with Kraft. I got recruited from on campus. I was flown out to Chicago, interviewed. I was like, wow, this is great. Once I got the job, then they said, okay, you're working in a warehouse in Northeast Philadelphia. This girl from New York City did not do well working in a warehouse in the suburbs of Philadelphia. So after 3 months, and that was scary, I quit my job, but it was okay. And my freshman year boyfriend was leaving his job in advertising, and I had the background and I got the job, and it started my career. So make friends, put yourself out there. Don't be shy. I know that's the hardest thing, is putting yourself out there, but it'll set you up for the rest of your life and to make it a happy life. And the rigor will be there. Stuyvesant's amazing. You're learning so much, but just for high school and for college, be open.
Yeah, I'm Gracie. I'm a senior at Kenyon College in Gambier, Ohio. And right now I'm on my second day of classes of this semester, and I have a couple hours before my first Toni Morrison seminar because that's what we do at liberal arts school.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, awesome. So the structure of this is kind of be first some high school related questions and then some college related. So starting with high school, because it's like obviously earlier, um, what did you do in high school and how would you describe your high school self? Like as like extracurricular wise?
So I started at Ken. Oh my God. I started at Stui, like just frantically wanting to join everything. Like I think a lot of us do that. Like I was really excited and also it was a little overwhelming, all the opportunities. So I joined a lot of stuff and probably bit off more than I could chew. But I knew going in that I was more of like an art Englishy oriented person. So I did a lot of stuff in that area. I kind of dabbled in STC, and all my friends thought I was in people thought I was in STC, but really I just hung out with all the STC people, but didn't really do that much STC. But after the first couple of years, I kind of moved from a lot being very involved in clubs and pubs at Stui to doing a lot of out external Stui stuff. And I think that's probably what like my peers from Stui would remember. Like if you ask someone who didn't know me super well, like Gracie Goldstein, like what was her deal, they would probably say like activism. I call it organizing, but I was very involved in 2018. Like you were younger, like there was the Parkland mass shooting in Florida, which you remember what a big deal that was. I that was the beginning of that for me. So my friend Morgan and I organized Stuyvesant's walkout when all the schools were doing walkouts, and like a month after that. And that was our first experience building and organizing community at Stui. Then we started working with organizers from other high schools around the city to do a bigger protest a month later with more people, with more speakers, and like we had like Congress people and activists come in. And then in my senior year at Stuyvesant, I was very, very focused on climate organizing, on the climate strikes. So it was weird, like, because I had a double life. I had that very, very intense Stuyvesant track where that's your whole world. And then I had this separate life where there were really no Stui people for most of the time, which was very intense in its own way.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That makes total sense. So the next question is, what is something you wish you knew about Stui before coming in?
Honestly, I think I don't know if this happened to you, but I remember when I was an eighth grader and I got my big sibs at the end of that year, and we started like sort of interacting. I kept asking them questions about Stui, like we all were, and they kept telling me like, enjoy the end of eighth grade, like you're not going to relax again for 4 years, like have fun. And I was like, I don't care about eighth grade, I'm going to Stuyvesant, like. But honestly, like, yeah, they were right. Like, enjoy whatever opportunities you have to like just relax or learn about yourself, probably outside of schoolwork, or any kind of work, like the grind set thing, it's small doses. Like, I think it can be character building and you can bond with people and get something out of it, but we all take it too far. We all took it too far. So, like, like I'm not a work life balance person. Like I think like work and life should bleed into each other and you should, I think because I think both are work is part of life, but like I don't know. Like I think like know who you are outside of schoolwork, outside of clubs even, like try to like use your breaks and whatever mental space you have to like kind of develop an identity and realize what's fun for you, probably.
Yeah, that's great advice. Do you have any regrets about Stuyvesant in general?
I know I do, but I guess honestly, for some reason, the only thing that pops into my head is that I never went to, and this might not be a thing anymore. I don't even know if Miss Prabhu was still there, and I think she ran this. But there was a coral reef club, and I always wanted to go, and I just never went. I should have done that. So I guess to generalize that, like if there's like something really like out of pocket that you want to do the thing.
That's actually really great advice. Um, when you look back to Stuyvesant, do you have fond memories or is it more negative?
I definitely have fond memories. Like I mean, obviously I'm at college now, but I got here just a couple days ago. And the night before I got here, I was doing the last night of shooting for a web series that I wrote and was shooting. And I originally like recruited like sort of actors who I know from other places to do it with me. And then I needed people to like help me behind the scenes, and it just wound up being all Stui people. So the night before my senior year of college, I was like out with like two actors who I know elsewhere and like four of my best friends from Stuyvesant. And
Mhm.
it's great because we have this wavelength with each other, and it really like those people I've known since I was like 14, 15, like very much feel like actual family members to me. So I have fond memories with them, and just the fact that I have those people in my life makes me grateful that I went to Stui. But like obviously like we all like love to like shit talk Stui while we're there, and we all love to shit talk Stui now. Like I made a friend who I never knew at Stui, but who also is in the year below me there at Kenyon last year. And like we kind of like ran into each other at like a party and like found out we were both from New York. And I was like, where did you go to high school? And he was like, where do you think I went to high school? And I was like, I don't know. And we both kind of looked at each other and we were like, Stuyvesant. And like we screamed, and all of our friends were like, what are they doing? And immediately we proceeded to be like, oh my God, we were like in the trenches and like none of you understand like the grind set and like the counseling department, like being like your worst nightmare, like instead of like a place to go, like all that crazy stuff. So, but also like on one hand, like it's not good to romanticize the unhealthy stuff. On the other hand, it can be very fun to be like, oh yeah, like we went through this crazy thing together that most people don't really get. So like it's mixed. It's mixed for all of us, I guess.
That makes sense. Well, that's actually really funny that you met someone at a party like that. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
it was weird
Yeah,
because we snapped right into like just vomiting the shared experience at each other.
it's so cool. So like as we know, Stuyvesant has a lot of really good students. How did you stand out in your applications, and what advice would you give to, I guess, my grade who's applying to college now to stand out in our applications?
Oh my God. I remember like late in my before the pandemic, because I was a pandemic senior, but in my senior year, like once I was in Miss Shamal's office talking about she needed me to clean the bells for the bell choir, which is a long story. And somehow she just ended up like talking to me about college applications. And she was like, 5 years ago, it wasn't like this. Like, this is crazy, like what they're doing to you guys. And like she was like, it wasn't like this before. I need you to know that. So I'm a little afraid to like give any kind of advice because like like I'm not like an Ivy Leaguer or anything. Like I don't think I love Kenyon and it was my personal first choice, but like I don't know if I like nailed it as like being an applicant to colleges. And also like it just changes so fast. Like professors like in professors that was in college, teachers in my year like couldn't believe like how crazy applications had gotten in the year during the time like between when I was a freshman when I was a senior at Stui. So it might be better, it might be worse now after a pandemic and a few more years, but like honestly the thing is that it's also unreliable. Like I had a really good friend who was the perfect candidate. Like he was the perfect candidate. And he did all of the pre-college programs and like our senior year he would be gone every weekend. He like did the Williams thing, which is like really hard to get into. He did the Oberlin program, like all of that stuff. He had a bunch of mentorship programs that were really good. He had incredible grades. He's a brilliant human being, wonderful. Contreras, our principal at the time, wrote, I think we were the only two of the only people in our grade he wrote recommendation letters for, because I don't know why he chose me, but this guy I understand why. Like, and he wanted to go to Harvard. Like he was all about like understandably. And he got into like upwards of 30 because he applied to like dozens of colleges. I couldn't believe it. He was working around the clock. And he got into like upwards of 30 like elite colleges. Like I called him like I got into Kenyon and he was like, "Oh, me too." Big deal. Anyway, Carnegie Mellon just wrote me, and Dartmouth, and this school, and this school. Like he got into all these schools and he didn't get into Harvard. And it was crazy because that was the one he wanted to go to. And he was like overqualified for Harvard. Like it was the dumbest thing in the world, but it's so random. And he's at Stanford right now, which, is the same level of like, oh my God, the tippy top of everything. But like, I don't know. Like, I think it's good to remember that like it's it's a pretty random and impersonal system out there. So like don't get your heart set on one thing, and like, you know, create an application and a resume that you're proud of and that represents you in a way you're really happy with. But like it doesn't like reflect on you, because you can be the best and the school that you have your heart set on might still just be stupid about it. Like you cannot control it. You literally can't control it.
They just might not have enough seats.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, don't worry. So the next question, that's the last and kind of STY related. How has STY prepared you specifically for college and generally the real world?
I always heard when I was at STY from like big sibs and friends who had graduated that like being at college was pretty easy academically after Stuyvesant, and it's kind of true. But like just in terms of, I mean, I'm an English major. I think it's probably very different if you go to like a research university and you're in a STEM major, because then you're back to like the working all the time and dozens of pages of reading a week and all of that stuff. But here, like, you know, I take 4 classes a semester, which is obviously very typical. And there's just all of this time in between homework assignments and all of this time in between classes. So it's a very different lifestyle than Stuyvesant. And in a way, it is easier. And I think Stuyvesant taught me to like hammer out a lot of work very quickly. So like the adjustment from high school into college, I think is tough for some people who went to high schools with a lighter load, versus for me, I was like, this is great because there's all this time, and time is just something I wasn't used to. The flip side of that is I think I was very much in the habit of like the finessing thing, where I was like, I need to do this as fast as possible, leave it to the last minute if I can, and see how well I can make it, how well I can do it at the last moment. I just had that super weird mindset from when there was no free time and never enough time to not cut some corners. And it during my freshman year, I had to realize like, oh, like now that I have all this time, like I'm capable of doing all this really fast, but I can also sit down, really learn as deeply as I would like to, and do work that I'm proud of all the time, which wasn't necessarily the case in all of my classes at STY. So that's a nice thing.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Kind of similar to a question I asked about the high school portion. What is one thing you knew before you wish you knew before you came to college?
Before I came to college, I don't know what I wish I knew. I feel like I had basically all the information necessary. I wish I hadn't been starting college in a pandemic, because, which is not relatable advice, but it was just a rocky one. I don't know what advice I wish I'd had, but I do wish that I had been a little like braver socially. Like I definitely went in like very like I need everyone to like me so much. Oh my God. And I should have just been like, I'm Gracie, like we should be friends. And if we're not, we're not, and just let it happen. I was a little too self-conscious.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I'm sure that applies to like everyone. So do you have any regrets about college? I know you're in your senior years.
Yeah, I'm in my senior year. I guess probably similar to Sty. There are probably some clubs I should have joined, stuff I should have done. Honestly, not really. Like maybe I wish I'd done more. I'm really happy with what I did this past summer, because I worked on a few separate things this past summer. But my first couple summers, I did have like health issues that restricted me a lot, but I wish that I had somehow managed to get more maybe writing, more creative work done, even just more reading done on my own during all of that time that I had off and at home, or that I'd like done some program or something just to make more use of that time before I graduate.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And kind of the last question, is there any like advice in general you would give to the Stuyvesant students watching this video on generally how to survive Stuyvesant and then survive college afterwards?
Yeah, I think just count on your friends a lot. Make sure that if at all possible in every single class you take, try to have one friend like who you can text for the homework, like who you can ask for help. I mean, in college, like there's not that Facebook safety net where you can like do that master post for like get people to catch you up on your notes for every class you miss just by tagging them. Make sure you have people in your classes who you're friendly with or even friends with who you can count on.
Thanks for watching. Bye.